Greetings, Yinzers and non-Yinzers alike. Welcome to Black and Gold Central, here on the Pro Football Central Radio Network. Well, the 2014 NFL Draft has come and gone. We didn't do a show last week here. I was getting ready to go on a trip, as many of you are this weekend with Memorial Day coming up. So it might be a little belated, but we are going to grade the Pittsburgh Steelers draft, and we're going to talk about a couple of other things NFL related in today's show. So we're going to get started right away here. And in the first round, the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted Ohio State linebacker Ryan Shazier, and they're going to be using him, they say, as an inside linebacker. He is 6'1", 237 pounds, a junior. Now, inside linebacker didn't appear to be their most glaring need. Going into the draft, we thought cornerback or wide receiver would be the positions that the Steelers would address on day one. But inside linebacker was sort of an underlying need for the Steelers because they had a rookie, Vince Williams, playing there last year after Larry Foote got hurt. And Troy Polamalu had to fill in at inside linebacker a lot last year too. And that really took Polamalu away from his strengths, even though he did have a pretty good year last year. So Ryan Shazier led everyone at the Combine with a 42-inch vertical leap. He was the top linebacker at the Combine with a 10-foot, 10-inch broad jump. And even though this wasn't at the Combine, he's been clocked at 4.36 seconds in the 40-yard dash. And Steelers coach Mike Tomlin said anytime a linebacker can run under 4.5 in the 40-yard dash, as Mike Tomlin put it, he said that's rare air. So, what's interesting, and the thing about Ryan Shazier is that there might have been an initial letdown when we first saw Ryan Shazier, as the Steelers' first-round draft pick. We were really expecting Darqueze Dennard. And, Ryan Shazier was one of those later-round players who we thought that the Steelers, if they wanted him, they'd have to trade back in the first round to get him. But in all the mock drafts that I looked at, it was interesting with Ryan Shazier because he was between 19th and 30th in all of the mock drafts that I looked at. So it was pretty much, he had a very he was very consistent in where he went in a lot of the mock drafts. You have some players who some mock drafts expect to go in the top 15, and then in other mock drafts they don't go until the second round. But with Shazier, it was pretty consistent. So but as it turns out, the Dallas Cowboys were all ready to draft Shazier at number 16 in the first round. So the Steelers, Shazier really was their guy. That's when you had to get him at number 15. And the thing about Ryan Shazier that's interesting is that he improved in a lot of different stat categories in his 3 years at Ohio State. In total tackles, he went from 58 in 2011 to 115 in 2012 to 144 last season. Tackles for loss, he had 5 in 2011, 17 in 2012, and 23.5 in 2013. Sacks, 3 in 2011, 5 in 2012, and 7 last season. In forced fumbles, he had 2. He went from 2 to 3 to 4 last season. Okay, and also in the last 2 years, he had 15 passes defended for Ohio State. So this is somebody who can definitely bring some speed into the Steelers' defense. And yeah, the Cowboys wanted him, and he was a guy who really, no one really expected to go that early, but the Steelers got him. And My grade for Ryan Shazier, I'm going to give this pick a B. It was a good, solid pick for the Steelers at number 15 in the first round. Ryan Shazier, linebacker of Ohio State. In the second round, the Steelers drafted Notre Dame defensive end Stephon Tuitt, a junior. There's a lot of varying heights and weights. Some, he's been listed anywhere between 6'5" and 6'6", and anywhere from 304 pounds to 312 pounds. Smart pick for the Steelers there in the second round. This is number 46 overall. The Steelers, I had Stephon Tuitt going to the Steelers in my mock draft in the first round last year in an early mock draft article that I did for Bleacher Report last June. Even though it was 2013, I did a 2014 mock draft, and I had the Steelers taking Stephon Tuitt in the first round, but his stock dropped quite a bit because of injuries. He had hernia surgery during the off season, gained a little weight, and so didn't quite have the impact last season as he did the season before. But he kind of came on as the season went on. He had 13 tackles for loss in 2012 and only 9 last season, and then he went from 12 sacks to 7.5 sacks. And then also he had a foot injury and he couldn't take part in the combine, in the NFL scouting combine. But in Notre Dame's 14-10 win over USC, he had 2 sacks and a batted pass, and one of those sacks came out of 4th and 20 at Notre Dame's 26 with less than 3 minutes to go, and that helped Notre Dame protect their 4-point lead. And he also he induced a holding penalty in that game, and he also showed enough speed in that game to chase down a ball carrier after that ball carrier had gained 15 yards. So, apparently, Stephon Tuitt has checked out medically. If the Steelers made him their second-round pick, the hernia, the foot injury, so apparently they don't have any medical concerns with Stephon Tuitt if he's their second-round pick, and I give this pick a B grade, just the same grade that I give the Ryan Shazier pick. And really, if Ryan Shazier and Stephon Tuitt are both contributing as starters, as rookies next year, and the door is wide open for them to do so, the Steelers really have. It's not like in years past when the Steelers have gone to the Super Bowls every other year. They don't have established starters keeping these draft picks from starting. So these draft picks have the opportunity to start right away, at least Ryan Shazier and Stephon Tuitt do. And if they're making contributions as rookies, then the Steelers 2014 draft is already better than a lot of their recent drafts. If that can happen with their first and second round picks. Now in the third round, the Steelers drafted Dree Archer of Kent State, running back, wide receiver. He's a senior. He's my size. He's 5'8", 173 pounds. Now, I wasn't thrilled about the Steelers using a third-round pick to draft somebody who's my size, but the difference between him and me is that he's a lot faster. He runs the 40-yard dash, and he ran it in 4.26 seconds at the NFL Scouting Combine. And that made him the fastest player at the Combine, and also the fastest player at the NFL Scouting Combine since Chris Johnson in 2006. So there's some speed here. He can return kickoffs. He'd be an instant upgrade over Felix Jones as the Steelers' kickoff returner. But, with touchbacks in the NFL now, the value of a kickoff returner, has diminished. And he also, he can really be a nice he's sort of a gadget player. The Steelers got LeGarrette Blount. They got their big bruising running back in free agency. And they do need a shifty, speedy running back there on their depth chart. So this is definitely a need that the Steelers filled, but I just thought that the third round was a little bit too early for the Steelers to be addressing a need like that. This player, Adree Archer, he's sort of Chris Rainey without the baggage. But I mean, the Steelers not having Mike Wallace, I mean, they do need somebody who can stretch a defense like Mike Wallace did. So, but as I said, I just think the third round is a little too early to be drafting a gimmicky player like that. That's probably when the Steelers could have addressed their situation at cornerback. So I grade the Adree Archer pick in the third round a C+. This was their 97th pick in the draft. They ended a 51 pick wait to draft Adree Archer, and I didn't think it was the best time to pick him. In the fourth round, the Steelers chose wide receiver Martavis Bryant of Clemson. He's a junior, 6'4", 211 pounds, the wide receiver that Ben Roethlisberger has always wanted. Well, we'll see if he turns out to be the wide receiver that Ben Roethlisberger has always wanted. The Steelers have had some tough luck in drafting tall receivers, or at least receivers 6'4" or taller in recent years. Remember Limas Swede in the second round in 2008. Now, I kind of went back in some of the articles that I did for Steeler Addicts. At first, I wasn't thrilled with the Martavis Bryant pick. He's a boomer bust guy. He doesn't have the best hands. He dropped 4 passes in a game against Georgia. So at first, I just wanted the Steelers to avoid Martavis Bryant altogether. But then I read what I wrote in Steeler Addicts, and I said that he would be, just weeks earlier, I said that Martavis Bryant would be a good pick in the third round for the Steelers with that number 97 pick. NFL Draft Scout had him with a second or third round grade. So, I guess for to be taking Martavis Bryant in the fourth round, I guess that's a good value. So maybe this isn't a bad pick for the Steelers. The fourth round, you're not making as much of an investment in Martavis Bryant as you were in Limas Swede 6 years ago. He's been called a one-year wonder. He had 42 catches, Martavis Bryant, last year at Clemson, but a lot of that had to do with being Sammy Watkins' teammate at Clemson, and Watkins caught 101 passes. So he's being second fiddle to Sammy Watkins, and he's not going to be asked to be the number one guy with the Steelers either. Antonio Brown is that guy. So the Steelers aren't. Martavis Bryant isn't exactly. They don't need him to be a savior. So it'll be a role that he should be accustomed to with the Steelers. Martavis Bryant ran a 4.42 second 40-yard dash. That was the fastest time out of all the receivers 6'4" or taller at the combine. And his 39-inch vertical leap was the highest among all receivers 6'3" or taller. 16 reps in the bench press. That's reps of 225 pounds. Only 10 of the 38 receivers who did the bench press at the combine had more reps than Martavis Bryant. Maturity has been an issue according to the scouting reports with Martavis Bryant. One thing I think that Bryant has going for him is that I think Ben Roethlisberger is more mature now than he was 6 years ago when the Steelers drafted Limas Swede. Maybe back then Roethlisberger wasn't ready to take a young receiver under his wing. I'm not saying that's the entire reason why Limas Swede was a bust, but I'm saying that didn't help, and I'm saying that with a more mature Roethlisberger, more of a team leader, maybe that can help. Maybe he can help bring Martavis Bryant along a little bit. After all, he really should try because he's the one who's been clamoring for a tall receiver all these years. The Steelers accommodated him, so Roethlisberger should do all that he can to make that work. So, and my grade for this pick, Martavis Bryant in the fourth round, a B-, because this is a risky pick. This is this is a boom or bust kind of a pick. You know, I think Martavis Bryant is either going to be, you know, he's either going to be a Pro Bowler or he's going to be out of the league in 2 years. I don't think there's going to be any in-betweens with Martavis Bryant. And he can really, I think that, I don't have the exact stats on this, but he had 7 touchdown catches last season. I think 4 of them were in the red zone. So he's definitely an effective red zone weapon and can help the Steelers replace what they lost with Jericho Cotchery. All of Cotchery's 10 touchdown catches last season came in the red zone. So a B- for the pick, Martavis Bryant. In the 5th round, the Steelers finally got around to taking a cornerback, Shaquille Richardson of Arizona. Senior, 6 feet, 194 pounds. He made a highlight reel play on and it's all over YouTube. I think this was the opening play, or at least in the opening minute of a game against Oregon. He tipped the ball back onto the field. He was going out of bounds. He tipped the ball back into the field of play, and a teammate made the interception. And he also finished the game with an interception to clinch the win for Arizona. In 4 years of college, Shaquille Richardson made 10 interceptions, broke up 37 passes, and that includes 15 passes defended in 2012. You know, not a bad body of work for a 4-year cornerback there. That's what you kind of look for as far as the resume goes. Okay. And he also registered 8 tackles for loss in his 4 years. Some character concerns with Richardson. According to NFL.com, he was arrested on suspicion of felony theft back when he was a freshman. The other thing here is that the Steelers don't have a good record drafting cornerbacks in the 5th round, I should say. Terry Hawthorne last year got cut in training camp. Preston Butler made it beyond training camp but never played a defensive snap, and Butler was their he was a 5th round choice at cornerback. That was in 2010, I believe. So I'm going to give this a C. I'm going to grade the Shaquille Richardson pick a C for the Steelers. You know, Richard Sherman was a 5th round pick, so Shaquille Richardson can prove me wrong. But for now, this pick gets a C. With their 5th round compensatory pick, the Steelers chose offensive tackle from Vanderbilt or offensive lineman from Vanderbilt, Wesley Johnson, a senior, 6'5", 297 pounds. Okay, he has played all positions on the offensive line, so there's some versatility here, which adds value to this pick. New Steelers offensive line coach Mike Munchak, you know, his size, he might seem a little small, 297 pounds, but the zone blocking scheme that Mike Munchak uses, that favors smaller offensive linemen. You don't need those 330-pounders for that necessarily. Okay, in playing left tackle in 2012 and 2013, Wesley Johnson only allowed 2 sacks. Okay, he's a 51-game starter, so he's durable. You know, and every draft, you know, has like one runt of the litter, one whammy, one guy who's going to get cut in training camp. You know, Terry Hawthorne last year, Terrence Frederick the year before, the 7th round cornerback. You know, I don't see Wesley Johnson being that guy. You know, under Mike Munchak's tutelage, I see Wesley Johnson at least making the practice squad for the Steelers. So a good pick here. I'm going to give it a B. I'm going to grade this pick a B. Now we're going to get into the 6th round here. And the Steelers drafted linebacker Jordan Zumwalt from UCLA. This is another linebacker who the Steelers say is going to be playing on the inside. You know, the Steelers need some depth at outside linebacker too. I think they're assuming that Jarvis Jones is going to take a big step forward in his second year, and they're assuming that Jason Worlds is going to be more than a half-year wonder. Okay? They need both of those things to go their way, and even if both of those things go their way, the Steelers are still going to need some depth at outside linebacker. And they really didn't get that in this draft, unless Jordan Zumwalt can surprise people and turn into an outside linebacker. Jordan Zumwalt is a senior. He's 6'4", 235 pounds. Okay, he has played both inside and outside linebacker at college. Only 5 career sacks, but 22.5 tackles for loss in his college playing career. And he also, like Richardson, he's also a big YouTube star with his hit on Logan Thomas in the Sun Bowl. Okay, but you know, you need more than YouTube highlights to succeed in the NFL. He kind of projects right now as someone who can contribute right away on special teams. And really, you can't ask for much more than that from a 6th round pick. I'm going to grade this pick a B for the Steelers. Okay. Now, 6th round compensatory pick. With that pick, the Steelers drafted Tennessee nose tackle Daniel McCullers. 6'7", 352-pound senior. This guy's got 11-inch hands, 36 and 5/8 inch arms in length. His arms are 36 and 5/8 of an inch long. So this is a big guy. Okay. Now, for all the talk about the Steelers playing in their sub packages 65% of the time, and nose tackles not being on the field as much, not being 3-down players, you know, this pick shows that the Steelers still value that, you know, that mass of a human being at the front and center of their 3-4 defense. Even if it's a late round pick, you know, the Steelers traded up for Alameda Tiamu in the 4th round back in 2012 to trade him. That pick was a disaster, both on the field and off the field. Okay, but at least this year the Steelers aren't trading up to get the big nose tackle, and they're taking less of a risk on him because he's the 6th round pick as opposed to the 4th round pick. You know, he always didn't. You know, McCullers, according to the scouting reports, didn't always play up to his potential in college. But he's a durable player. He didn't miss any games because of injury, and you know, a lot of play. You know, he also got some mid-round grades. So the Steelers did a good job in this draft, taking guys with early round or mid-round grades and taking them later than they were expected to go. So again, they're getting some value here. We'll see how it turns out, but from what we know right now, it looks like there's good value with this pick. Daniel McCullers, I'm going to give this pick a B-. And finally, last but certainly not least, in the 7th round, the Steelers drafted Massachusetts UMass tight end Rob Blanchflower, a senior, 6'4", 256 pounds. You know, I really like this pick. He caught 43 passes in 2012, a little bit slowed by injuries last season, and caught 27 passes. He's a better blocker than David Paulson. I think the Steelers, you know, this is a very small scale here, but I think this is at least an upgrade over David Paulson on the team. He's not going to replace, this is no Heath Miller, okay? But, you know, this is somebody who can maybe at least give David Paulson a run for his money for his roster spot. So I'm grading this pick as a B. And you notice I'm not grading anyone higher than a B. I didn't give any of these picks a grade higher than a B. Okay, and I'm gonna grade the overall draft here, and the overall draft I'm going to give a B-. Okay, and I would give it a B Okay, but the minus is there because, we have a lot of optimism with all these players when they're drafted. In April and May, these guys are all stars, with our projections. But I'll believe it when I see it, and that's why it's a B minus and not a B. And by the way, I didn't give draft grades in any of my articles on Steeler Addicts or on the Sports Daily. So these draft grades here that I'm giving you, this is something that you can get only here on Black and Gold Central, nowhere else. Now, the Steelers also drafted, they didn't draft them, but they also signed some undrafted free agents. The NFL draft used to be a lot longer than 7 rounds. I mean, it used to be 16 rounds or even 20 rounds, sometimes even more than that. Okay, and so, but with only 7 rounds now, there's some players who go undrafted who can turn out to be really good in the NFL. And I have a couple here, a couple of undrafted free agents here who we should keep an eye on. One of them is Stanford defensive end Josh Morrow. He's 6'6", 282 pounds. Now, both NFL Draft Scout and NFL.com compared Josh Morrow to Brett Kiesel. And as you know, Brett Kiesel, a Steelers defensive lineman, 35 years old. He kind of remains in limbo right now as a free agent. But Josh Morrow, he's got length. He could be sort of a guy who can put his hands up and bat down a lot of passes. And Stephon Tuitt can do that too. It looks like the Steelers are sort of regaining some length there on that defensive line. Players who can really get their hands up and get in the way of some passes there. So Josh Morrow, he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on there as an undrafted free agent. Also, Howard Jones from Division II Shepherd University. He's a linebacker. He's 6'3", 235 pounds. He had a school record 34.5 sacks at Shepherd. 71. He also had 71 tackles for loss, 8 forced fumbles, and 4 blocked kicks. Now I know this is a developmental project here. He comes from a Division II school, but an intriguing pickup here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So there you have it there. Finally, a long time coming, and I apologize for the wait, but that's your draft grades and a couple of undrafted free agents to keep an eye on here. Now, since the draft, there have been a couple of other NFL league-wide developments, one of which being that we will not see expanded playoffs in the NFL in 2014. It's going to happen in 2015 at the earliest now. Okay, now the way it's set up now, 12 teams make the playoffs in the NFL. The top 2 teams, record-wise, earn a first-round bye. They don't have to play in the wild card round, and then they play the top 2 seeded teams play in the divisional round. So, but under this proposal, 7 teams from each conference would make the playoffs, and only the top seeded team would get the bye. Okay, and so this would add a wild card game. This would add 1 wild card game in each conference. Okay. Now, I've said before in my writing and on here on Black and Gold Central, I don't like this idea, and I'm at least happy that Roger Goodell really was trying to ram this down everyone's throat. To really railroad this and have the expanded playoffs happen beginning in 2014. But, the owners, they're taking a more cautious approach. They're not going to vote on it until at least October now. So, we have it the way it is for at least another year. Okay? Now, I don't like this idea. I think it's fine the way it is. We've had this current playoff structure in the NFL since 1990. You got 2 teams in each conference getting a bye, and the other 4 teams playing on wild card weekend. There's a certain symmetry there. When you give one team a bye and make the other 6 play, There's just something awkward about that. You know, I mean, you're stopping short of 16 teams making the playoffs, like you do in the NBA and NHL. But I think you're taking a step closer to that, and it's gonna make the regular season less interesting. And by the way, this is a Steelers podcast, so you have a guy here who, if there were a seventh playoff team in each conference in the last 2 years, the Steelers would have made the playoffs the last 2 years. Despite that, I am against expanded playoffs in the NFL because, for one thing, you would likely have to have playoff games, wild card playoff games, on a Monday night. So how do you set up the schedule? How do you set up the playoff schedule to ensure that a team playing on Monday night doesn't have to play the following Saturday? I mean, you really can't let that happen. You can't let a team win a wild card game and then have to play on 5 days rest with only 5 days later, with only 4 days to prepare for a team that that might have another extra day or two of rest. Okay, we know we have the Sunday-Saturday dynamic now in the NFL, where a team might have to play Sunday and then play the following Saturday. That's one thing, but you're really pushing it when you're asking a team to play a playoff game on Monday, then another playoff game the following Saturday. Okay, if you're gonna do this, at least find a way to keep all the games on Saturdays and Sundays. Make a triple header. Start the first game at noon if you have to. Do a game at noon, a game at 4, and a game at 8. Okay? But, you got to stop. And the thing with this is that what really, one of the many things that bothers me is it just seems NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, he just keeps tinkering with things. He just keeps trying to fix what's not broken in the NFL. I understand all the added revenue that would come from expanding the playoffs, but if you hurt the product, you're going to get diminishing returns if you make the product less appealing. And I think expanded playoffs in the NFL are going to do that. You're just going to make the regular season less interesting, and you're going to get more 8-8 teams in the playoffs if that happens. The Steelers did not deserve to make the playoffs in either of the last 2 years. Okay, I mean, they would have played the Patriots in the number 2 seed. I mean, do we really need to see the Steelers losing by 30 points or 20 or 30 points at New England again? Haven't we seen that enough? And I just, I wish Goodell would just stop tinkering. And as I spit on my computer keyboard here talking about this, but Roger Goodell needs to concentrate on making the game safer, and he's doing that. I commend him for doing that, but when you try to add playoff games, you defeat the purpose. The teams with the 2 best records in each conference, they have earned the right to not play on Wild Card Weekend. Okay? And adding games, that defeats the purpose of Goodell's mission to make the game safer. I mean, you can't go up there and talk about how you're trying to make the game safer, but meanwhile, you want to add more games. Teams that are banged up, who have earned those byes, they get that week off to heal a little bit. Well, not anymore, at least not for half of those teams. With just that one team having to bye, it just makes the whole playoff bracket very unwieldy. Okay? And, I wrote an article against playoff expansion on Bleacher Report back in January. Okay? And I added a poll in the article. Now, there were 178 people who voted, and, okay, granted that they were reading my article against it, so perhaps they were influenced a little bit by that, but out of 178 votes, 70.8% of the fans say that no, NFL playoff expansion is not a good idea. 29.2% said it was a good idea. That's more than 70% there who are against playoff expansion. In a recent poll just this week that I saw on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, 63% voted no on playoff expansion. 21% voted yes. The rest were undecided. Okay? The fans don't want it, Goodell. Okay? Even though that it would increase the chances of their team making the playoffs, the NFL fans were smart enough to know that you'd be ruining what you have, a pretty good thing you have going, by adding one playoff team in each conference. The fans don't want it, but you know what? Roger Goodell doesn't care what the fans want. Okay? And I know it's his job to make as much money as he can for the owners, okay? But sometimes he just seems to go about this in a very robotic way without really taking a look at the long-term effects of this on the league, and definitely without taking a look at what the fans are saying, or without hearing what the fans are saying. Okay, that's it on that. You know, just to go over it here, you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers had their rookie camp, and then they're going to be doing OTAs May 27th to 29th. That'll be next week, you know, after Memorial Day weekend. So that's really the next time that they get together and convene. Now, you can follow me at Steel Tweets. That's Steel_tweets. And you can follow Black and Gold Central at BNG Central. And you can also follow me, my writing at my Steelers website that I write for, Steeler Addicts, and also my NFL-wide writing that I've done on the Sports Daily. And you can follow us on Twitter at Sports Daily Blog. Thank you for listening and for watching. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and we will be back next week.